Pain is in the building.
What is up, everybody? Happy game day eve. I'm pumped. I'm ready to go. I'm excited for week 5. I cannot believe it's already week 5. Where has the time gone? I have no idea. I'm super excited about the show tonight. I had a special guest join me. I pre-recorded Thursday night with Texans beat reporter Cody Stutz of at Houston Football, and I'll play that video a little later. We got a great slate tonight. I'll go over our power rankings. I'll update some injury news. We'll do the standard blueprint of victory, some player props. It's a jam-packed show. I'm super excited for you guys to be joining. Let's get right into it, and we'll start off by paying a little bills. I'd like to thank our new show sponsor, Mackenzie Farms and Happy Holiday Tree Farms, for supporting the show. They have a message for you this holiday season. Remember when we took pride in the things we built, the things we grew, when we put aside small differences to support one another? We can do it again, and it's not as hard as you think. This Christmas, say no to fake trees. They're made of lead and plastic in sweatshops overseas. Choose a traditional, sustainable, real tree grown by American family farmers in every state. We're not as divided as they say. Let's support each other again. The only way to ensure real Christmas is with a real Christmas tree grown here in America. So this Christmas, don't fake it. Go real. That way you will definitely have a really great Christmas holiday. Sponsored by the growers of real Christmas trees at Happy Holiday and Mackenzie Tree Farms. And again, I really want to thank them joining as our show sponsor. Without their support and others like it, shows like this wouldn't be possible. Next up, W Energy. They're our newest network sponsor. W Energy is an amazing energy drink that is made with clean ingredients to give you the energy boost you need with no crash. They also offer an electrolyte drink to keep you hydrated. Hit the link in the bio or go to w.gg and use the promo code DUE, D-U-E, and get 10% off your first purchase. All right. Let's start off with how about college football today? It's been a crazy slate. How about Alabama going down at Vanderbilt? I don't know about you guys, but I definitely did not see that one coming. Pretty great game played by Vanderbilt. They just kept sticking it to Alabama, and you got to tip your hat to them. That's a pretty amazing win. Overall, the slate's been pretty crazy today. There's a pretty good night slate right now. Florida's putting it on UCF right now. With 21-3. USC was down early to Minnesota. I think I saw Georgia Tech went up early on Duke. So excited to see how those play out for the rest of the night. Getting to NFL, we have the first of 3 London games starting this week. So the first game is going to be the Jets versus the Minnesota Vikings. I'm a little torn between the Europe games. The 9:30 kickoff time Eastern time is a little early, but it is nice not having to wait till 1 o'clock for football. As far as that matchup goes, I'm calling it the Darnold Revenge Bowl. I'd love to see Darnold get in there and get some revenge on that game. It's kind of a clash of two styles for me. You have the Jets pass D, which is super stingy this year. They're giving up the second fewest pass yards and third fewest receiving yards to wide receivers. And so for me, if I'm Minnesota, I'm featuring Aaron Jones' ground game and even throwing him the ball too, and then picking and choosing where I want Darnold to throw, especially off some play action. if Minnesota wants to win that game, they really gotta hope Darnold can play mistake free. Um, and then as far as the Minnesota defense, I want to see how the Jets handle that. They really like to bring some exotic pressures, to show some exotic looks, and try to really cause some confusion. You got to think there's not much Aaron Rodgers hasn't seen, but with his lack of mobility, can some of that pressure get home? Minnesota passing D, though, I was really surprised by this. They're giving up the most pass yards and second most um, receiving yards to wide receivers. So I thought that was really surprising. I was expecting those numbers to be way lower. So as far as for player prop perspective in fantasy football, are the Jets going to get some through the air? How's Rodgers going to look? It seems like he's looked better week after week throwing the ball. Um, it really comes down to, can Rodgers handle the blitz and the pressure, and can that Jets O line stand up? I like Minnesota in this game overall, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets won. Um, I don't know if they'll make Darnold see ghosts again. He's been playing really good under Kevin O'Connell. As far as player props go, I like a lot in this game. I'm probably going to do a lotto ticket kind of bet here. Um, I just like too much of the action, and maybe get lucky early. So for me, I like Aaron Jones over 64.5 rushing yards. I like Aaron Jones over 25.5 receiving yards. I don't love betting on anytime touchdowns that are this low. Aaron Jones is at plus 115, but if you want to throw it in a parlay, I could see that makes sense. Um, I like Addison over 37.5 receiving yards and an anytime touchdown. I think there's really good value there. You saw him come back, and immediately they looked for him in the red zone, and they also gave him a red zone carry. I like Garrett Wilson over 4.5 receptions. He's done that in the majority of the games this year. I think all four. So I like that here. I like Allen Lazard over 2.5 receptions and 35.5 yards receiving total. And then I like Conklin and Mike Williams both over 2.5 receptions as well. As far as anytime touchdowns, I was surprised, but Garrett Wilson and Allen Lazard actually share the red zone target share for the Jets. They're at about 34% each on red zone target share. I like that price for them at Garrett Wilson being at plus 195 and Allen Lazard being at plus 320. So I think there's good value there. And then, like I said, Jordan Addison anytime touchdown is a plus 270. If you stack all those together into a lotto ticket for the morning, it's plus 86,329. So for me, throw the $5 on and maybe hit $4,000 in the morning. Not a bad way to start a football Sunday morning. Another little wrinkle in there is first touchdown. I like all three of those guys for first touchdown. So Garrett Wilson at plus 1,000, Lazard at plus 1,600, and then Addison at plus 1,200. What's up, Whittle? Thanks for joining, man. Feel free to comment and on anything, guys, and I'll try to answer them as we go. I will be playing that recording in a little bit that I did earlier this week with Cody Stutz. So if I don't get to your comments during that, I'll get to them after the recording. I thought you'd like that lotto. I mean, come on, plus 86,000. That's a little fun way to go. As far as analytics for the game, I mean, all those are such high probability. I think they're all over 67%, and most of those were at over 87% chance to hit. So I don't normally do bets like that for games. A lot of games I only like 2 or 3 things, but I really like this slate, and with Minnesota, being so leaky in the pass game, I think it's hopefully easy money on some of those reception ones. All right, let's hit reverse power rankings. There's been a lot of movement in that. The bottom kind of stays steady, but the middle to the top, man, there's been a lot of shuffling. I guess it's not that crazy though. We're going into week 5 right now is where you're starting to figure out, what teams are. All the injuries and stuff like that are starting to set in. So we're getting a better idea of what teams are, and then, these power rankings, I wanted them to be like in the moment right now. So it's not necessarily projecting out what I think these teams are going to be in the future. It's just right now how I see them. So injuries definitely play a major factor in these rankings. At 32, I have Carolina. I like them a lot more with Andy Dalton. Like I feel like they can beat probably half the league on most weeks with the offensive side of the ball, but I really worry about their defense. They just can't stop anyone. And then they have some injuries. Thielen went to IR, and then Deontay Johnson has an ankle right now, so I don't know how healthy he is. So I have them at 32. I have Jacksonville at 31. They're way more talented than that, but like we talked about last week, you just got to win games. I mean, they're right there in all these games, minus the Bills game, and they're just blowing these games. So until Trevor Lawrence can start getting a little more consistent, which we've all been waiting for that for a few years, and the defense makes some plays, they're going to sit down there. I worry about that defense, though. They're really banged up. Their linebackers are banged up. Their secondary is banged up. So I have them at 31. They got a big matchup this week, so they can move. I think that Indianapolis game they could definitely win. I liked it a lot better for them when Anthony Richardson was playing. With Flacco at QB, I kind of like Indianapolis' chances more. So we'll see. They could move some there. I think we can all agree they're talented enough to move up into at least the middle of the pack. At 30, I have New England. They're just a mess. I heard a lot of stuff about the locker room. I'll only touch on them because they're AFC East team. But I wonder about that locker room. Like how long do you want to sit with Brissett at quarterback? Especially if Drake May is in practice, playing well. You hear rumblings that the team really wants him to put in Drake May. So that offense is pretty lifeless right now without him. I don't think they've completed a pass over 20 yards this year, which is just crazy. Until they make some changes or something else happens, and they're pretty injured, especially on the lines. So I have New England at 30. 29, I have the Giants. Not much to say there. They've been pretty disappointing, and injuries as well for them, especially with Malik Neighbors. Man, is he looking so good, but he's going to miss this week. 28, I have Miami. I would love to put them lower. If they lose to New England, I'll definitely drop them lower. I wonder week 2 with Snoop if they can get something going in the pass game. He missed Tyreek a couple times deep. He had him open, so we'll see. And then that run game's been pretty disappointing. Understandably, though, without the threat of the pass, you can kind of stack it against them. But I don't know if A-Chain's not fully healthy or whatever, but he just hasn't looked to have that burst. So we'll see. I don't think anyone's hopes are too high on Miami right now, except maybe their fans. OBJ is going to play for the first time this week, but who even knows what OBJ is at this point in his career. So Miami at 28. I have Cleveland at 27. That's a weird team for me. It's like, their defense could have them in any game, but their offense is just awful. They haven't run the ball particularly well this year. I know their O-line's banged up, missing Jedrick Wells and Teller, so that could have something to do with it. But Deshaun Watson is just playing terrible. He has little flashes, little moments, but overall, he's played like a bottom 5 quarterback in football. So it's hard to win games with that. So I have Cleveland at 27. I have Tennessee at 26. I like what I've seen from their defense overall. Their pass defense has been a lot better than I thought. But man, talk about just ups and downs with quarterback play. Like, it's so hard with the volatility at the quarterback position to win games. A couple mistakes and wins turn to losses real fast. So Will Levis has really got to step it up. But I've been saying it since before the season. I don't like that pairing. I don't think Callahan and him are a good match as far as what you want to do schematically on offense, and you see it. He just doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't get to play his style as far as, on the move and kind of chaos football and just create big plays. He's being forced to play into structure, and he kind of panics and just making some really bad decisions. So Tennessee at 26. I have the Raiders at 25. I don't know what to do with them. They're a below average offense. Their defense has flashes of being pretty decent, but they're really banged up as well. I think Crosby's questionable if he plays this week or not. It's a big game on the road in Denver for them. We'll see, but I think most people are just rooting for them to lose, so they'll trade some pieces like Devontae Adams. Who knows with that? I wouldn't hold your breath for Devontae Adams to the Bills, though. I think there's too much to be made there as far as the cap and how much that would cost for a rental. So I'd be more. I think it's going to be more like the Jets or Redskins or something like that. So, but it definitely sounds like he's going to be out of there. 24, I have the Colts. I liked them a lot better with Flacco. With Flacco in there and Josh Downs and Pittman finally was getting the ball. Like that offense is good. JT being hurt is big. I'd like them a lot more if JT was healthy. So I have them at 24. That defense though is not great. They're giving up a lot of yards. So we'll see. They should handle Jacksonville, but they are +3 right now against Jacksonville. So they go in there, beat Jacksonville, and JT gets healthy, and I'm gonna move them up some. This next batch of teams is kind of just all lumped in the middle, probably from 23 to 17. I have the Rams at 23. They're another team that's just so injured. It's hard to tell like what they are from a week to week basis. But I like McVay a lot. I like Stafford. Stafford's playing really well without his two best weapons. So I like the Rams a lot. But man, they got to get healthy. Defensively, I'm really disappointed though. They're like bottom 3 in most categories defensively. Really young, but they got to step it up and stop giving up those big explosive plays. 22, I have Arizona. Talk about another up and down team. Like who saw them getting crushed by Washington last week? So they're going to live and die as the offense goes. Trey McBride's hurt. I saw he was questionable and might not play this week. But they really got to get the offense moving, and really that's how they're going to win games. Like they're going to have to score teams. 21, I have Chicago. I don't know what to do with Chicago. I'm happy to move them wherever anyone wants them. You could probably convince me they could go up a couple spots, and you could easily convince me they go down a couple spots. Their defense is solid. I thought their run defense would be a lot better. Their run defense isn't nearly as good as I thought, but their pass defense has been pretty good. But Caleb Williams, man, like just playing structure, just take profit. I wish more young quarterbacks would do that. Just take the profit, take the easy stuff. He tries to do way too much. He holds the ball way too long. And he's just not a very accurate quarterback as well when in his straight drop back. So they're struggling. They got weapons, but they've been banged up as well. Keenan Allen's been banged up. Odunze's been banged up. And then DeAndre Swift just hasn't been the DeAndre Swift I thought he would be. He looks slow, not explosive. And they really need that run game to get going. So before I can move them up anymore, I really need that offense to start playing better and more consistent. 20, I have the Chargers. It's hard for me to make much of the Chargers or really know what they are. They beat up on 2 relatively bad teams and then have lost 2 in a row. So I don't know about the Chargers. Herbert needs to get healthy. I don't know how big a deal that the ankle foot thing is and how long that's going to last. But really, they're going to live and die on the run game and that defense, and then Herbert just making some great plays to keep the ball moving. So I have Chargers at 20. I have Denver at 19. Again, like the same grouping. I don't trust their offense. Their defense has been playing really well, but like I don't think I trust Bo Nix to have to go out and make plays. He's been throwing the ball way more than I thought. He's had games over 40 attempts. Granted, most of it's like behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage. But yeah, like until they can get the ball moving and get some vertical game in there, I don't know how much to trust them. And then Javonte Williams has been so up and down. Like last week he had a good week, but they need to get a consistent run game there. But that home field is a massive win, and that should really help them at least get some wins and stay in the middle of the pack. I have Washington at 18. Um, I like Washington. Obviously, they're a big surprise with Jaden Daniels, how well he's playing. Their offense is playing really well, but their defense is just bad, like really bad. They're not getting much pressure on the quarterback. They're giving up a lot of passing plays, and so I think that limits them. That puts a lot of pressure on the offense to score. And so we'll see how consistently they can do that. Like once people get more tape on Jaden Daniels and kind of get a game plan for how to attack him, we'll see how he does. So right now I have them at 18. 17, I have the Jets. I don't love the Jets. I don't love their roster. It's relying too much on old, slow players and injury-prone players. If everything goes right for them, I definitely think they can win games and they can stack a bunch of wins. Their schedule's not super hard. But again, like Rodgers worries me. Like he's already banged up. He had knee swelling. Like at that age, like you just can't be taking the hits he's taking right now. So I'm really interested to see this game tomorrow morning and how he does against Minnesota. Like if they get a bunch of pressure on him and knock him around, like I'm not sure he survives that game. So we'll see. And we know they go as far as he does with that offense. So I also expected that run game to be a lot better and more consistent. Brees has not had a good year at all. It kind of goes with some of his advanced metrics. Like people love Brees because he has those, he had those big explosive plays and runs. But as far as like a down and down player, he gets way too many negative plays. He's so boom or bust. So it's really hard to stay on schedule as an offense with a running back like that. Number 16, I have the Bengals. I think they could definitely be way higher, way better team. They've done this numerous years now where they start out slow and then they turn it on the rest of the year. Their schedule's not super hard, so I could definitely see them rip off a bunch of wins and be right up there in the top 2 or 3 seeds come playoff time. So we'll see. This is a big test for them with Baltimore coming in. Baltimore's kind of owned them a little bit with Lamar at QB. I think he's like 8-1 against Cincinnati when he's actually played a full game. So we'll see. Big test for them, and then we'll see where they fall in the rankings. 15, I have Tampa Bay. I don't know what to make of them. I didn't love them at the beginning of the year. They came out on fire, looked really good, and then they've kind of struggled the last couple of weeks. So I don't know what to make of them. I think they're right where they should be at 15. Borderline, playoff team, wild card team, depending on what happens in the South. That was a big game. They lost in the Falcons, and that kind of is why I don't love Tampa Bay. I don't love their coaching, especially in critical moments at the end of games, and you saw that perfectly on Thursday night. Like there's no reason they should have lost that game at the end. So Tampa Bay 15. I have Seattle at 14. I just don't trust Geno. I don't like you watch those games, and yeah, he'll make some really good throws. Like he has some serious arm talent. He's really accurate at times, but you get some pressure on him, you get him a little like moving left or right, and man, he makes some bad throws. He's not very consistent on tough throws either, but he's got some good weapons, good run game. And I think the defense will keep getting better if it stays healthy. So I have Seattle at 14. I really like them this week as far as player props go. We have a new show tomorrow morning. Definitely check it out. It comes on at, I don't want to do some bad time conversion here, but it should be 10 a.m. Neffy, check me on that, but I think it's 10 a.m. Eastern time. And we're going to be running through the full slate of NFL games, giving you our picks, and then we're going to go through all our player props and then doing DFS. I really like Seattle and some of their player props. DK and Metcalf, I think that matchup's really good. So definitely check it out tomorrow morning. We're super excited about that show. It'll probably go from 10 to noon Eastern time, maybe a little later, maybe till 12:30. and then get you right up to before kickoff. So check it out for all your picks and player props. 13, I have Dallas. Dallas could easily be like 25th. I don't know. I don't love them. They have some serious injuries. Dexter Lawrence on IR. Micah Parsons is injured. Brandon Cooks is now going to IR. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't love the roster to begin with, and they just can't handle these injuries. So we'll see. Their top end talent though is still really good, and so they should win some games. But I don't love them. They go into Pittsburgh, they beat Pittsburgh, and I think you definitely move them up. I think, but again, like they lose that game to Pittsburgh, and man, you start really worrying about this season. 12, I have New Orleans. Kind of the same deal with Tampa Bay. Started out hot, really cool wrinkles in the offense, but they have such a specific script that they need to win. Like they want to pound the ball, they want to get Kamara a lot of touches, get him in space, have him break off some runs, and then play action you and go deep with Carr and Shaheed, and you get a lead on them, and it's over. It's game over. They will not come from behind. So with that being said, and them being limited, and then some of the injuries they had, losing your center is a major blow. I have them at 12. I have Atlanta at 11. I loved Atlanta going into the year. Obviously, they started out slow. Kirk looks like he's getting more and more comfortable. They have so many weapons, and you give Kirk a little time, and with those weapons, like he's gonna put up numbers. He always has. And so I like Atlanta. I think their schedule's not super hard. Like they should stack wins and be there. And really they should win that South now that they have the early wins against their divisional foes. So I have Atlanta at 11. I have Green Bay at 10. Green Bay is tough for me. Like I thought their defense would be better. I don't love their coordinator, but I thought their talent was good, and I thought their pass defense would be better. And then on offense, it's tough, man. When Jordan Love has that injury, came back last week and he was slinging it, but man, he made some bad decisions. But they have the weapons, with Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks and Dubs. Watson's out hurt. Now you see the drama with Dubs. He's got a 1-game suspension. He sat out because he's not happy with his role. Which there's got to be more to it, because man, is that a weird time to sit out? Like you have injuries to the wide receiver core, and that's your chance to step up, and he sits out of practice and then gets suspended. So that's a weird one. I really like Dubs though as a player. I think he's a legit wide receiver 2 in football, and so who knows what happens with him, young guy. Yeah. So Green Bay at 10. I want to see Jordan Love just play cleaner, play better. This is a great test for them. Again, on our show tomorrow, I'm going to talk about this matchup specifically because I really like Green Bay in this matchup with Jordan Love and Jaden Reed, and I think they can put up some points. But it's tough when you throw 3 interceptions in a game. Got to clean that up, and they got to get the run game going with Jacobs. So Green Bay at 10. I have Houston at 9. Houston, like some of these other teams, like the Bills, really banged up roster, and they just haven't put it together. They've been beaten up on some lesser teams. The best team they played blew them out as far as Minnesota, and then they really struggled against Jacksonville last week. Yeah, it's a divisional game, but they could have easily lost that game. So I like Houston's talent. I think if they get it rolling on offense, they get Mixon back healthy. I think that's a big thing for them. Like he brings an identity for them on offense. Like they can pound the rock with him. He brings the pain, and I think that sets a tone for that offense. And then they can work the play action off that, and it really opens up the middle of the field for them. Without that threat, I think it changes what they do on offense. So they get Mixon back healthy in a week or two, and we'll see. Big test for them, though. They're at home against a big AFC opponent as far as the Bills. They go in, play well, and they win that game, and then they'll obviously move up. This game's going to be important for seeding too, so we'll see how that goes. But right now I have Houston at 9. I have Philly at 8. Again, injuries. Like, A.J. Brown plays, Hurts is good. That offense is good. A.J. Brown doesn't play, that team's terrible. Like, they'll lose to anybody. That defense has not been great. Again, like Fangio situationally or certain styles of offense, he matches up better against, but it hasn't been as good as I thought it would be. So we'll see with them. They have the talent. They got to get A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith healthy, and then we'll get a better picture. Because you can't just rely on Barkley and that's it. Because Hurts for sure hasn't been doing much. So I have Philly at 8. I have Pittsburgh at 7. I don't know what to do with Pittsburgh. I don't know what to do with Mike Tomlin. Like, they're so well coached. They don't beat themselves. Really, really good defense. And then the offense just does enough. Fields has been playing good football. Moving the ball, not putting it at risk. They've been running the ball and then letting Fields do some play action with Pickens and Freiermuth. So they're a solid team. I think this is a big test for them. You should beat Dallas the way your rosters match up right now, the way you've been playing. Matchup-wise, I think is really good for them as well. Like, their D-line should get after it for Pittsburgh, and I think they should be able to run the ball on Dallas. So I'm looking forward to that game and seeing what the Steelers can do. But I have the Steelers at 7. 6, I have Minnesota. I really like Kevin O'Connell. I like Brian Flores. But I want to see them play some different style of teams. I think that Flores defense is really good against Shanahan-style offenses, but I'm not sure they match up well against some of the other styles of offense and some of the more experienced quarterbacks. So we'll see. Time will tell. This is a big game for them in London against the Jets. I'm excited to see how they do. Hopefully they whoop up on Aaron Rodgers. But right now I have them at 6. I have the Bills at 5. A lot of people might think the Bills should be lower, but I think the matchup against Baltimore is just so unique. It's hard to knock them too much. And then, man, with all their injuries too, it's been tough. I think they go down and win in Houston, and they're right where they belong in the top 5 teams or so in football. They go down there and they lose that game. And then I think you drop them a couple spots and keep them around the 10 mark or just inside the top 10. Like, I think they're a really good team. Their schedule's tough, and these early injuries in the tough part of their schedule is really tough. So we'll see with the Bills. Time will tell. We'll get way more into that game, obviously, in a little bit. But right now I have the Bills at 5. I have Detroit at 4. Detroit was like my favorite team going into this year, but Goff just hasn't played super well. He needs to settle down. Like I said last week, it looks like his drops are just really rushed and his feet are getting quick. I also think Ben Johnson is getting a little cute with some of the play calling. You saw it last week revert back a little bit against Seattle to what they were doing last year. And they were just pounding the rock and starting it with the run game and then building the pass off of that. I'd like to see them feature Laporta more, especially in the seam. They really haven't been doing that this year, so we'll see if they get back to that. The deep threat of JMO has been really nice, so you get the run game working, work the play action with Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then the deep ball with JMO, and that's a really, really good offense with their offensive line. And then their defensive line has been really good. Whittle says, I don't understand why people act like Buffalo didn't play a lot better after halftime. No, I agree. And I mean, I think that game was like the worst starting game script for the Bills, right? They get the ball. McDermott goes for the first 4th down, 4th and 1, inside our own territory. We all like that call. And then he gets, the offense is moving it. They get to 4th and 2 at the Baltimore 44. And you don't go for it. And the 3rd down play I thought was fine. Josh probably should have thrown it earlier. He had Shakir and then Kincaid open, and he held it. Kincaid had a chance, but it was a tough catch on 3rd and 2, and it gets to 4th and 2, and I would thought for sure we were going to go for it. Like, it's your first drive. You're in Baltimore territory. Like, set the tone, and I think that could have changed the whole start to that game. Obviously, they punt. The next play is an 87-yard Derrick Henry run, and from there, like the whole momentum, everything changed in that game, and it was really tough for Buffalo to turn that around. You saw in the second half they had a chance when they forced the 2 3 and outs. Um, yep, exactly. Um, Two straight stops after the half, and we were driving the ball right, and it's 2nd and 7 from I think the same place, the Baltimore 44 or right around there. It was in Baltimore territory, and they do that stupid trick play, and it killed all momentum. Like, I mean, you go down there and get any points, make it 21-13, 21-17. Like, that's a whole different game. Obviously, a big turnover by Josh there on that trick play, and then they went right down and scored, and that changed the whole game. So I thought there were two really critical moments where bad coaching decisions kind of changed that whole game. And then with the game plan they had on defense, like, you cannot trail. You cannot play behind when you're running 92% light boxes against Baltimore. Like, they are just going to run the ball down your face, and you're not going to force them out of that. So we didn't make any adjustments there, and it was a bad game. Like, learning, you learned from it. Hopefully, young coaches learn from it, and hopefully McDermott, you set the tone like the first drive. Like, you did it right on the first 4th and 1, but you got to keep it going that first drive. Like, that is the tone setter for a game like that against a team like Baltimore, who thrives off of those early game scripts and momentum. So yeah, I agree with you. Like, that's why I have the Bills at 5. I think they're still a really good team. Babich was super passive in the first half. These coordinators need to be better tomorrow. Totally agree. Totally agree. I didn't think Babich had a good game plan at all, especially in the first half. And yeah, like, Baltimore brought out some wrinkles that they hadn't shown the first 3 weeks. Like, they were prepared. I didn't see that from us, especially in the first half. I didn't love Brady's lack of motion either before the snap, but the offense I don't think necessarily was the problem. Like, they were moving the ball. It wasn't like they were just 3 and outing or going negative or anything like that. So I think we're fine. It was just a bad game script, and against an opponent who had a good game plan and played a really good game, efficient game. So not too worried about it going forward. And perfect segue. Thank you, Whittle. I have Baltimore at 3. They're a good team, man. Solid team. And yeah, I think they get a good game script, and they're going to be really tough to come back on. I do worry about their ability to close out games, though. Like, you saw it against us. Like, we had a chance, really, to turn that game around. And historically, Lamar and that team have really struggled to close out games. I think Henry helps with that, and running out the clock and pounding the rock. But I worry about if you force Lamar to be a thrower, to be a passer in the pocket, how that will work for them. I was really disappointed we didn't do that. I understand Manning-wise is tough when you're missing your starting 2 linebackers and your nickel corner who plays your 3rd linebacker. I get that. But you got to try stuff, man. Like, bring a 5th lineman in. There's other things you can do with alignment-wise and run blitzing-wise and things like that. So I was disappointed with it. But again, it's hard to knock them too much. It's still early in the season, and with all the injuries we have, we'll take it. But for Baltimore, I have them at 3 for that reason. I think they're a really good team, but we'll see. I think it's a big test for them. Like, is it going to be a letdown game? It shouldn't be. It's a divisional game against the Bengals in Cincinnati, and they've been really owning Cincinnati with Lamar at quarterback. So we'll see. Baltimore takes care of business there, and they're going to be off to a really good start and a good lead in the AFC, right behind Kansas City. Number 2, I have San Francisco. I think we all agree they're a super talented team, good team. Injuries, though, have hurt them to start the season. Obviously losing CMC, we don't even know when he's going to come back, if he's going to play. Arthritis in both calves, not what you want in your running back. So we'll see. Obviously, Jordan Mason's been playing well. He's obviously not as dynamic, but they have plenty of weapons with Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle. Debo and Kittle had injuries as well. So it just comes down to injuries for them. Otherwise, they're going to be right there at the end. I do think they're the class of the NFC right now, though. So I have San Francisco at 2. And then obviously Kansas City at 1. I won't take them out of 1 until they start losing. Back-to-back Super Bowl champs and 4-0. So no reason to move them out of there. We all know what they are, and they just win close games, man. That's what they are. They don't look pretty doing it, but they win, and that was New England for a long time, especially earlier in the season. And then they would turn it on when it mattered. So it's kind of been what Kansas City has been doing. So I have Kansas City at 1. All right, that wraps up the reverse power rankings. Now I want to play the recording I did with Cody Stutz of at Houston Football. He's a beat reporter covering the Houston Texans daily. Just wanted to say, keep in mind we recorded this on Thursday before some of the major injury news. So after the video, I will catch us up on some of the injury updates and what that means for roster and then for strategy. And then I'll give the blueprint to a Bills victory, followed by player props and a score prediction. So let's roll right into that. All right, and now I'm joined by Cody Stutz at Houston Football. Hey, Cody, you want to tell people where they can find you? And thanks again so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking me to come on, and just throw my name in the Google machine. You'll find everything you need. I got a newsletter. I got the Twitter account. I got the YouTube page. So the Google machine will help you find whatever you need. So I appreciate everybody who will check it out, and I appreciate you having me on to talk a little bit about this Texans-Bills matchup.
Yeah, definitely. And check the ticker on the bottom. That's where you can find all Cody's work. You're on pretty much daily, right?
Yeah, so the Twitter account will get you practice updates, and it'll lead you to all the video and written work and all that stuff. So it's great, man. If you can't find me, it's a you thing. It's not a me thing. I promise. I promise.
That's awesome. I love it. And just for some background, so people know, you're at practice every day.
Yep.
Do you travel at all to away games or just home games or?
So I'm at every home game and I'm at every practice.
Okay.
So I don't make the road games. It makes a little bit more sense to do what I do from at home. I'm going to make some road games this year, but just don't make all of them. But yeah, I like to call myself a digital beat reporter because all my stuff lands digitally. There's no physical copy of anything that I do. It's all digital. So digital beat reporter, sort of a new thing that a buddy of mine created, and we'd like to call ourselves digital beat reporters. And so that's how we cover the team. They're at practice every day, locker room every day, and in the interviews and everything. So we're around the team a ton, and it's fun, man.
Awesome. Really appreciate you giving us that insight here. Well, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump in it. What was the latest from today's practice and the injury report that you saw?
Man, this thing is getting nasty for the Texans from an injury standpoint. It's so the biggest injury, the one that matters the most to the Texans, is Joe Mixon. And he got hurt in the second game of the season, Sunday Night Football against the Bears. And he's practiced once since then. He practiced last Friday, and there was hope. Okay, he practiced on Friday. Maybe he can play against the Jaguars. He's inactive for the Jaguars game. So then there's a lot of hope. Okay, he'll practice Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and play against the Bills. And that's not been the case. He didn't practice yesterday. He didn't practice Thursday. We're recording this on a Thursday. And so I don't believe Mixon's going to play. Now, if he practices Friday, that's enough for a guy like Joe Mixon to play in the game. But the Texans have to look at this from a 17-game slate. Yeah. And they don't have a good backup running back situation. So they're actually their backup running back, Dameon Pierce, he's hurt too. He got hurt before the second game of the season, and he hasn't practiced since. So they don't have a good running back situation. So as much as you would love this game, it's the Bills. It's a measuring stick game. It's probably an AFC seeding, decision-making type of game. You can't risk Joe Mixon's long-term health of a season. So, no practice for the first 2 days. DeMeco Ryans is a big, you got to practice guy to play. So I don't anticipate Mixon playing. But if he does, it's a huge boost. It's a huge boost to what the Texans have as far as a rushing attack. If it's not him, you're going to see Dare Ogunbowale, you're going to see Cam Akers, and you're going to see J.J. Taylor, and that's not the best triumvirate of a running back situation. The other scary thing from an injury standpoint is your backup defensive ends are both injured right now. So Derek Barnett hasn't practiced this week. He's their key. He is the most key backup on this team to me. He's the guy that comes in for Danielle Hunter, Willie Anderson when he spells those guys for a bit, and he bumps inside sometimes on passing downs to rush from the inside. So Barnett hadn't practiced this week. Jerry Hughes gets added to the injury report on Thursday with did not participate. And so that's your two key backup defensive ends that aren't practicing. Now, you play mostly Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, but you still need the backups. They still get a fair amount of snaps, so that's a little scary for the Texans. And, okay, Laramie Tunsil's not 100%. Titus Howard's not 100%. And their key backup, Blake Fisher, the rookie from Notre Dame, the Texans drafted in the second round, he's got an illness. He shows up on the injury report, did not practice. So it just the bad news on the injury report just keeps coming up for the Texans. I'm worried about Barnett. I'm worried about Hughes, and I'm certainly worried about the running back situation as well. So it's not great from an injury standpoint, and that's kind of how the scales of the NFL turn for you sometimes.
For sure. Yep.
The Texans caught a great break against the Jaguars when their top tackler's out, their second tackler's out. Evan Ingram doesn't play. Sometimes the injury gods smile upon you and sometimes they smite you. And right now the Texans are being smited or smote. I don't know exactly how to say it, but you get what I'm saying.
Hey, at least the tables are pretty even, it seems like, from an injury perspective for this game. So for Mixon, was it a high ankle sprain? Is that what I saw? Or did they ever specify?
The Texans are Fort Knox when it comes to specifying injuries. It is very tough to figure out exactly who and what. Sometimes you really only find out once the player's back and he'll tell you. But it's very hard to find out. But I think it's more than just a sprain, because if it was a sprain, he'd have been back by now.
For sure. He's killed the Bills too. I mean, he is absolutely killed the Bills. So I know a lot of Bills fans are hoping he doesn't dress for that one. What about Tank Dell? I know he was limited. Is he expected to go?
Yeah, Tank's a go. Tank's a go. He's wearing the flak jacket around the midsection because he's got a rib injury coming out of the Minnesota game. So he missed last week. Coming out of the Minnesota game, he's got a rib injury. So he's practicing and he's going to play. We had a reporter here in Houston, Will Kunkel at Fox 26, say, Tank's going to play barring a setback. Well, no setback so far through a couple of days of practice. So Tank's going to play.
Great. For another former Bills guy, I know you touched on Jerry Hughes, but what about Robert Woods? I saw he popped up with a foot.
Yeah, that's showing up on a Thursday. That doesn't
like a vet rest kind of thing.
No, I don't think that bodes well for Woods. But look, they're going to primarily play Tank and Diggs and Nico Collins, and then you'll mix in the other guys here or there, so like Xavier Hutchinson, Robert Woods. But if it is truly an injury for Woods, showing up on a Thursday isn't good.
Not good,
I would watch for a Friday designation. But even then, Woods doesn't play a ton. He played a lot when Tank was out. But you don't get Woods in there a ton.
Is he doing punt return as well? Like who's the punt returner?
Great question. Steven Sims is the punt returner last week. First punt of the game, bobbles the fair catch, basically hands the Jaguars 7 points. He gets benched for Robert Woods. Then Sims gets to come back in the game. Then he gets a personal foul penalty taunting on the sidelines. Nice. And then he got benched again. So I don't know if it's going to be Steven Sims. I don't know if it's Robert Woods. Dell is a guy that can return punts for them as well.
But with the ribs, you worry about.
With the ribs, do you want to do that? If they promoted Desmond King from the practice squad, King's an option.
Okay.
But I would tell you, it's unless they've lost all faith in Steven Sims, it's probably Steven Sims.
Okay. Gotcha. So if you see Woods not dress or not play, would there be a corresponding practice squad move, or would it be King as like a backup punt returner that they would bring up?
That would maybe be what they would do with Des King. And they play their DBs almost 100% of the time. They don't do a lot of subbing. So King would be the guy, as I think about the practice squad, he's the guy that could come up for punt return help. J.J. Taylor does kickoff return stuff if he gets promoted with no Mixon. But King could help on punt return. So you could see that a little bit if Woods isn't a go. But I would tell you if Woods can't go, it's going to be Steven Sims then. That's scary after last week,
Right. Yeah. There's nothing worse than punt unit coming out and you're being worried about the guy catching the ball. Like that's the last thing you want to worry about.
Yeah, the Texans have had two horrific special teams moments in the first 4 weeks. They had the punt return that they just fumbled and gave the Jaguars the ball in like the 2, and then week 1 they had a punt blocked and gave the Colts the ball at the 2. So 2 times in 4 weeks. I mean, special teams coach Frank Ross is pulling his hair out, and he's like, we got to be better. We got to fix it. We can't do this. We can't be a detriment to the offense and the defense. It's driving him nuts.
Well, lucky for you guys, we're at the bottom of special teams as well. So we've had quite a few blunders from blocked kicks to kickoff return. So it's been ugly. So that could be helpful. All right, so moving on. Is there anything else on the injury front, or?
I don't think so. Okay. And like I said, you pay a little bit of attention to if Mixon goes on Friday, and then it's a maybe for Sunday. But I'm not super optimistic.
What about the Titus Howard hamstring that he popped up today as limited? Do you think that might just be a rest thing, or
so there's 2 ways to look at it. That's what happened to Dameon Pierce, the running back. He showed up with a hamstring injury on a Thursday, didn't practice Friday, and hasn't practiced since.
Jeez.
Last week, Nico Collins shows up Thursday, limited, hamstring, freaking out because it's Nico Collins. He is the offense at this point. Right. And then he practiced fully Friday, and he was fine. So
tomorrow's going to be a big day for
Howard's the one to monitor, and then obviously with Blake Fisher, the key backup at tackle, being not practicing because of an illness, that's something to monitor for Friday.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, let's move into the matchup a little bit. I had some interesting things for Houston that I wanted to get your feedback on what you're seeing.
Yep.
So first, I was really surprised by the pass defense by Houston. They had given up so far this year 199 yards, 134 yards, 156 yards, and 155 yards passing. I was not expecting to see that. Is that more game script, or is that more the defense playing that well against the pass?
It's super deceiving because Anthony Richardson, week 1, probably missed 3 throws. I saw that.
A.D. Mitchell was wide open a couple times.
Yeah, he probably missed 3 throws. And then, Darnold diced him up. Sam Darnold, he picked him apart. It was in rhythm, on time, hitting whoever he needed to hit. And then Trevor Lawrence, we talked about it on one of my shows the other day. I think there were 7 throws that I went through and counted. And, I think there was a couple of touchdowns. There's a couple of first downs. There's a couple of 15-yard plays. So the numbers are a little deceiving. And I actually asked defensive coordinator Matt Burke about this. Now, Burke doesn't call the defense. He just helps D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico Ryans calls the defense. But I asked him, I go, how do you coach a play when the result is the quarterback missed the throw? He's we coach the play irregardless of the result. He goes, so if we see that someone had a busted coverage, we coach to fix that. We don't let it slide because the quarterback missed a throw. He's like, we know we need to fix those things, especially if they show up a lot of times. So the Texans, look, Kamari Lassiter, he's been fantastic as a rookie. Derek Stingley's awesome. There's a chance, he got to get some impressive interceptions probably, but there's a chance he could be an all-pro when this is all said and done if he stays healthy. But they've had some moments where the QB has missed and covered up a mistake that they've made. So they are susceptible to a big play here or there. They just haven't had the quarterback be able to make the connection yet.
Has it been on like double moves, like man coverage or zone or like miscommunication?
Kamari gets eat up on the double moves.
Okay.
I mean, I think it was Brian Thomas Jr. last week got him on a double move, and then week one
Stud.
Well, that's the thing too. Is like it's
Yeah.
like when A.D. Mitchell and Brian Thomas Jr. are the guys that get you.
Right.
Like, are you bad or are they really good? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of tough for me to figure out with Kamari. So, I would tell you I'm not super worried, and I hope he's sort of seeing that that's what teams want to do against him. So they're susceptible to a play here or there, and then Stingley. It's just his aggressiveness works against him sometimes. Sometimes he's a little aggressive and guys get behind him.
It seemed like you guys have been turning the ball over, though, nicely on defense. I think you've had at least one forced turnover in every game this year so far.
Yeah, Kalen Bullock had an interception week one, the rookie safety from USC. That was a terrible Anthony Richardson throw. They've knocked the ball out a couple times, and if you challenge Stingley enough, like you're going to make a mistake, and he's going to get one. So that
seems like both him and Lassiter are pretty good with the ball in the air.
Yes. I think Stingley is one of the best I've ever seen at figuring out when the ball's in the air, turning, seeing it, and doing something about it. There was a play in the back of the end zone last week. Brian Thomas Jr., I think. I think it was him. Stingley saw that he was looking for the ball, turns his head, and then doesn't knock the ball away, but gets his hand in between the arms and rips the ball out as the receiver went to catch it. And I was like, okay, it's a really good play by Stingley. Like he has some really great anticipation. And, a lot of times we joke at DB, if they're on defense, it's probably because they don't have great hands. Stingley's got incredible hands. If you put it in his hands, he's not dropping it.
What about shifting to the run defense? Looks like you guys have given up over.
One thing about the coverage, though, that we didn't get to. So Jalen Petrie plays this kind of safety linebacker position that basically created for him this season. Teams have picked on him the past couple weeks.
Okay.
The Jaguars would motion Brian Thomas Jr. into the slot to get him on Petrie. Christian Kirk had some nice moments against him. And then Jalen Naylor from Minnesota got him a couple of times. Now, the passer rating will tell you it hadn't been that good. I think the passer rating against Petrie is 86, but watch it. There's some moments where maybe the ball didn't get there and Petrie was beat, or he recovers from time to time to get there to sort of make a play, or Lawrence missed Kirk a couple times. But Petrie and then Eric Murray in coverage are two guys that I feel like can get exploited a little bit, and teams have gone to exploit them. So that's something to watch in the secondary / coverage.
Okay. How have tight ends and running backs done?
Haven't faced a good tight end yet.
Okay.
It was whatever the Colts have.
Ingram didn't play. Yeah,
Ingram didn't play. Hawkinson's not playing yet for the Vikings. So I haven't faced one yet. So, I'm scared to death of Kincaid and Knox here.
Yeah.
If they put Petrie there, he's got the ball skills and agility to stay with them. He's just going to get big bodied. And then Henry To'o, if he ends up in coverage as a linebacker on one of these tight ends, I just don't know that he's got the athleticism to stay with him. Same with Azeez Al-Shire. Al-Shire's, a tackling machine. He's a monster. He can, live around the line of scrimmage, but he's not great in coverage. So it's going to fall to the safeties, I feel like, to handle these tight ends.
Okay. What about run defense? How would you say it's
nasty, just disgusting. Look, even Minnesota, if you go back and look, you'll see the numbers. You'll be like, that doesn't look that good. It's really held up by one big Aaron Jones run. They allowed some moments to the Jaguars, but ultimately, again, a big play.
It was a Bigsby run, right?
It was a big Tank Bigsby run.
Yeah.
But the way they operated week one against Jonathan Taylor, just total shutdown. I think we all know the Bears stink at running the football, so I'm not going to give them platitudes and props for that. But they absolutely mauled just mauled the Colts, and it's a really impressive offensive line.
Yeah.
It's a really impressive running back, and he got going the next couple of weeks. So it's not like it's a him thing. Like, they took care of business. I will be shocked if they are not a top 5 rush defense when this is all said and done. Like, that's how good I feel like they are, and they can be, and they're going to get pieces back here in the next few weeks that's going to make them even better. That doesn't matter for this matchup, but the ends are great at helping out when it comes to runs. The defensive tackles have been really good, and then I mentioned Azeez Al-Shire and Henry To'oTo'o, the linebackers. They've been really good too. To'oTo'o's taken a big jump, 5th-round pick last year, was almost unplayable at the end of last year. They're starting him because they have an injury to Christian Harris, and To'oTo'o's been really good so far.
What about we'll shift to I guess red zone defense. Saw you guys were 28th, 9 of 12. Is that more circumstance or issues, or what have you seen?
It's a good question. I think there's a little bit of circumstances that have worked against them. For instance, quick change. They got to defend the Jaguars after forcing a stop from the 2. Quick change. They got to defend the Colts after a block punt from the 2. Richardson rushed in a touchdown on them in the red zone. Just trying to think about some of these other ones. Like the Vikings killed them. The Vikings had like 2 offensive pass interferences that didn't get called either. So that was a little annoying. Their hope is you don't get to the red zone. And then because you shorten things up, it kind of takes away the pass rush a little bit.
Right.
But they did have like the drive of the game. Bigsby has that big run. The rookie safety Bullock knocks him out of bounds at the 2.
Yeah.
They hold the Jaguars on 4 straight plays.
Yep.
It from the 2. Like that saved the game for the Texans now that's the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Right.
You know, that's not Josh Allen and James Cook and the Buffalo Bills, but that they are better in the red zone than the number indicates. They just don't really their goal is to keep you out of the red zone and get you into the kicking game, punting or kicking field goals.
Okay, and then the other number I had that was interesting, shifting over, it sounds like it was more primarily on offense, is the penalties. 40 penalties, like in 4, that is just insane.
So it's a lot of the offensive line. Ineligible man downfield was the thing last week. In Minnesota, it was illegal formation. They've had some false start issues. I don't have an explanation for it, and I don't think D'Amico Ryans does either. It's been something that's kind of like you can live with a penalty. Like, okay, I'll live with a holding penalty so you don't get my quarterback killed. You know, I'll live with that. But you know, false starts, illegal motion. They had an illegal motion that wiped away like a 15-yard play against the Jaguars. Like, you can't have stuff like that. It's primarily on offense. They don't make too many mistakes on defense. Like Petrie had a defensive pass interference, but like it was for 4 yards deep in the offense's own territory. Like they went from their own 12 to their own 17. Like it wasn't anything, you know, too terribly bad. Like they haven't had some sort of weird pass interference where they gave up like 50 yards of field position. Nothing like that.
Okay. Well, let's get into the trenches then. So we'll start with we'll stay on the offensive side of the ball then. So where are they vulnerable? Pass, run blocking, pass blocking. Obviously, Laremy Tunsil's probably the centerpiece of that line. But what have you seen so far this year from the line?
That interior of the offensive line of the Texans it's not been good. Kenyon Green, who was a first-round pick from a couple of years ago,
I liked him coming out.
I did too, to an extent. I didn't like him more than Kyle Hamilton, who the Texans, they traded back, and really what the Texans should have done at that moment is take Linderbaum, and obviously he ends up in Baltimore, and he's fantastic because that's what the Ravens do, But Kenyon Green, he had a really good first game against the Colts, and then it's kind of been boop 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 boop. Like he's trickled down at that left guard spot. Juice Scruggs, he's banged up. He's had 2 separate lower body injuries. One was a groin, one was a hip. So he's
more an athletic guy, right? He's not like a power or strength guy.
Well, he came into this year. He looked like a strong man coming into this year. Like he looked like he was ready, and he was throwing guys out of the club against Indianapolis, and then we haven't seen that since. So, and then Shaq Mason, the agility's down, the awareness is down, the strength is down. It's when it goes fast for these guys, and it feels like it might be gone for Shaq Mason. So the interior is where they have a lot of trouble, both run blocking and pass blocking. But Titus Howard and Tunsil have had a couple of moments that you'd probably want back from a pass blocking standpoint. Though they got better against Jacksonville, better against the Jaguars, and CJ threw for 300 plus. So it's hard to be super critical of the pass blocking when your quarterback can go for 300 plus. But the penalties and some of the issues, when Blake Fisher was in there, he was not good. Like he filled in 20 snaps for Tunsil. Tunsil hurt his ankle, and Fisher was in there for 20 snaps, and he wasn't good. I had him down for 20 snaps, 3 penalties on the offense. So let's take him down to 17 snaps. And then he had 5 pressures allowed and 3 times where his guy made the play. So not good. Not good when he was in there. And oh, by the way, he didn't even practice Thursday because he's got an illness. So if they go to the backups, it's not great. It hadn't been cohesive. Stroud and offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick swear that they're close. They're close on the offensive line. They're close on offense. But I'll believe it when I see it is where I'm at with them.
Sure would help Mixon being back healthy. That makes your offensive line a lot better. He has a tendency to do that.
He might just be the key to them being able to run block as a unit. He just may fix everything.
Right. He runs with so much power. It's crazy.
Yes.
And then, his threat of running changes the pass game too. So
well, and he's not going to miss holes like some of the backups, Cam Akers and J.J. Taylor. And then Akers, cool story, 2 different Achilles injuries. He makes the team out of training camp. He doesn't have any juice. Like his acceleration's not there. And sometimes I wonder if he's not accelerating because once he does, he can't change directions. So like I saw there was a play against the Bears where he cut out and he got to the sideline and he just kind of rode the play like out, but there was nobody there. And I was just like, why didn't he turn it upfield? And then I was like, okay, 2 Achilles injuries. Maybe you can't turn it upfield.
Right.
So I think he does a lot of the dancing because once he accelerates, I don't know if the dancing is available to him once he turns it to speed. So, he's kind of he's either a dancer or he's going to make a decision. And if he's not making the right one, it's not going anywhere. They averaged less than 2 yards a carry on first down for most of the game last week.
Jeez.
So
it's definitely going to be an interesting matchup stylistically because that's what the Bills want to do. They want to limit the run essentially or dare you to run on them to get you on in 2nd and 3rd and long. And then that's where they shine is in pass coverage, which, is the opposite, right, for the Texans. They shine in throwing the ball and not running the ball. So it's a really interesting matchup for that perspective if Mixon doesn't go.
Yeah, any Bills fan worried about the Ravens game and things happening like that, it ain't happening versus Houston.
Yeah, so I guess before we'll just transition to it. But I think the big thing for me at where Houston can really exploit, where I'm interested to hear your take on it, is the middle of the field. With our linebackers being out, Bernard might play. It sounds like he's trending towards playing, but I don't know if he'll play, all the snaps. I'm guessing they'll ease him in, maybe do more passing downs and long and late downs and keep him away from the early downs running. But Spector and Dorian Williams have struggled in pass coverage, especially over the middle of the field, and then also with our safety situation. So teams can definitely take advantage of the middle of the field. So that's where I'm interested to hear your take on how the Texans exploit that. I know Nico is just a monster with those deep in breakers, and Diggs in the middle of the field is just all day. So.
But I mean, you're making me feel a little bit better about this matchup here because here's what I was so impressed with C.J. Stroud, his rookie year, and I'm still impressed with it, is his ability to not make a mistake over the middle. And he throws the ball over the middle with such confidence, and he puts it where his guys can catch it, and he's not afraid to challenge somebody. So he's not afraid to make the throw, and he's not afraid to trust his accuracy. So even tight coverage over the middle, he'll still try you, and most of the time it goes in his favor. The thing that Stroud, the only time he really trips up is if you show him something he's never seen before. And I always think back to his rookie season, and which was just last year. His first interception was New Orleans, and he was explaining after the game what happened. He goes, "Yeah, the linebacker did something that he's never done when they call that play, and he dropped into a place that he wasn't supposed to be in based on what I know that they do when they run that play. And that's why when I threw it and he's right there, I never expected him to be there." And I think about that all the time. Stroud's very cerebral, and he tries to find anything on anybody. Like, I think there was a clip after the Sunday Night Football game. We was telling Jalen Johnson, "Stop telling your secrets on podcasts." And he's like, "Because I watched it." He's like, "You're not going to get me doing that now because I saw it." And so
that was Palm's coverage. I think he saw that.
Yeah. So if you show CJ something he hadn't seen before, he can make a mistake. The problem is you got to keep showing him stuff he hadn't seen, because once he sees it, it's kind of banked, and then he's sort of ready for it. They're going to try to live over the middle with Diggs and Nico Collins and Tank Dell as well. And they love to get the ball in Diggs' hands. They love him as a runner with the ball in his hands. Like, they feel like that's been an underutilized skill in his time in the NFL, is they think he's a smart runner, and he has really good leverage in getting into open space. And so they want to get him the ball with open space and let him go. So that's something they're going to work on doing. Nico is the king of the in-breaking routes. I think some receivers are afraid to run that route. Yeah. Nico is not. He's also a giant human. Yeah. So it's easier for him to do it than some of these other guys. And then they'll live with some quick tight end stuff over the middle too. You know, Stover had a catch and run for 20-something yards last week. He's not a big component in the passing game. And then sometimes Stroud will just be kind of looking around, not see anything, and then boom, there's Dalton Schultz on a little angle. Kick it to Dalton, keep the train on time, and keep things moving. So look, if there's issues over the middle, they better have a solution for it somehow, because that's where the Texans, because they can't go deep right now. Teams, I think the CJ Stroud seeing, deep zone more than any quarterback in football.
Yeah.
Bobby
and that's what the Bills run. The Bills were one of the first teams to run that, to cover two, no explosives. I mean, they lead the NFL right now in negative EPA against the pass. So, they're still doing a good job even with their guys out. But Taron Johnson, their all-pro slot, I don't think he's going to be ready to play with his broken forearm. He's practicing on a limited basis, but that's huge because his backup Cam Lewis hasn't been great in coverage, and Diggs and Dell will just smoke him all day in the slot. So, I think that's a really interesting thing. And the Bills love to disguise their coverage. That is what they live off of with their safeties. They'll show you one thing and they completely change it post-snap. They'll show you like a normal cover 2, and then they'll shift into a cover 3 or cover 6, or vice versa. They'll show you a quarters, and they'll completely shift, even sometimes to a single high, and they'll drop like hook to curl, safety down into the hook to curl, and then drop a DN into the other side. So they'll do some really interesting things. I'm guessing this is the kind of game where they really need to do that, because if Stroud sees it, he's going to rip it. So I think that's going to be the cat and mouse between Stroud and defensive coordinator for the Bills, Bobby Babich.
Yeah, and there was actually this was a unique element. There was a Buffalo News reporter who came down to cover some Diggs stuff, and he asked about Babich. He asked Bobby Slowick about Babich, and he's like, "Hey, have you seen anything different?" He's like, really had to dive in, and get really minute on how different things are. He's like, my guess is Babich, McDermott, they see things the same way, and they basically call things the same way. Yep. And so there was no, massive change that offense coordinator Bobby Slowick could see, from, the headset handover.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Babich has been there a really long time. I think the big difference that I've noticed between the two is Babich is very, very big on attention to detail and the very little things. And so his units have always improved with him as the coach. So linebackers last year, safeties before that, and it's because of the very little details that he gets into, and you've kind of seen that with some of the stuff they did, like against Miami specifically. They were doing like very, very small detail stuff with shading linebacker or slot to a certain side because they knew Tua liked to throw there, and just little things like they were still running the same coverages that they had run previously, but I hadn't seen those little details before, so it'd be interesting to see if there's any wrinkles for that this game that kind of trip up CJ at all.
Yeah, I mean that's look, and sometimes when he makes a mistake, like he'll see it and maybe instead of throwing into it, he'll just tuck it and he'll just eat it and either get sacked or he'll try to make something happen. That's the real magic of CJ is he'll see things and he won't try to beat it with a different throw. He'll just be like, all right, cool. Well, Nico's going to figure out that I'm scrambling. I'll scramble. I call it the floating. CJ does it like he'll float behind the line of scrimmage until somebody's open, and then he'll just rip it. Mahomes does that. Whereas I think Allen kind of does it, but he's almost like an extreme sports athlete where it's like
he's running fast.
Yeah. Am I going to take the hit? Am I going to go out of bounds? Am I going to throw it? I don't know. I'll figure it out the last second. Okay, cool. I'm going to rip it. So it's a little different play extenders, but certainly play extenders on this one.
Yeah, definitely. So we covered most of the trenches for the offensive side. What about the defensive side as far as for the Texans? Like where is their weakness if there is one? I know you touched on with the injuries on the ends, like the rotation piece, but what about on the interior or anything you feel like you didn't touch on that Bills fans should know?
Interior had been banged up a little bit, but they're getting a little bit healthier. In fact, Foldy Fatukasi, who had a humongous play last week. There's Lawrence tucked it on a 4th and 4th and goal from the 2, tucked it out of empty, and Fatukasi just kind of ripped his man, stuck his arm out, and pulled Lawrence down and saved a touchdown. It's a great job. So it's 2 veterans in the middle, Foldy Fatukasi and Mario Edwards, and both have played really well. And they trust them a lot, and they're in there, and they get they do a good job with rush defense. They do a good job, rushing the passer a little bit. They've put Tim Settle in there a little bit more, former Bill. He's actually come on and been a little bit more effective the past couple games, and had a couple of sacks against Minnesota. Was close a little bit against Jacksonville. So Settle is a guy that you'll see in there in the middle. But this thing, this entire defense is built off the 2 ends. It's built off of Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. And those guys, it's 2 very different things. Anderson is a grenade. He just gets in there, forces you to pay attention to him, forces you to account for him. And if he takes out 4 or 5 bodies on the way, so be it. And then Hunter's he's like a precision missile. So they try to get him one-on-ones, let him use the bag of tricks to beat whoever's defending him and force the quarterback out that way. So Anderson.
Do they switch sides?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
So Hunter's usually on the right side, the left tackle side?
Every now and then, no. So Anderson gets the left tackle side.
Okay.
Yeah, so Anderson gets the left tackle side and Hunter gets the right tackle side.
That'll be interesting matchups versus the Bills tackles.
And so the thing, like they're 3rd and 4th in the league in pressure percentage. They're monsters. Did not have as much pressure. So this is a fascinating matchup because the conversation last week was, well, Jacksonville's got big offensive linemen. And I do wonder if both Will and Danielle don't want to mix it up with big offensive linemen. They don't want to get in there one-on-one and try to hand fight and all that kind of stuff. They want to get their move, get to the edge, win on the edge. And I feel like that's kind of the Bills again this week is big guys. Like that was a talking point that popped up again this week was it's a big offensive line. You could probably speak better to that. But, there were times where I was watching and I don't think that, I don't think Cam Robinson and Anton Harrison should be having that level of success against Hunter and Anderson consistently. But that's one of the only times this year Like they were bringing heat against that Minnesota duo, and I love those Minnesota tackles.
Right.
So I'm fascinated with this matchup. Um, Dawkins is obviously a monster. He's practicing. Kind of raised the eyebrow there a little bit when he didn't practice.
Well, Josh's comments yesterday didn't help that because Josh was saying he's a warrior, he's gonna go if he can, but we'll see. That was not good, but to see him practice today, that's encouraging. So
I'd be very worried if it was a backup tackle, but big guy like
their backup, their swing tackle, just so you know, is on IR now. The guy who won out of training camp, which is Grable.
Wow.
He went to IR. Now the guy that's now the swing tackle, Vandemark, was the swing tackle last year and played well. It wasn't like he lost. It was a surprise that he lost the job. It wasn't because he played bad. Just Grable, I think, was better on both sides. Where Vandemark is stronger on the left side. He's played a little bit for Dawkins last year and played well. So, definitely would much rather have Dawkins, but he's played.
I'll be really interested to see how D'Amico approaches this because he probably lets the four guys just try to get after it. Like against Caleb Williams, he was sending blitzes. I mean, he was sending Aziz Al-Shire. He sent a guy off the edge a couple of times. Like,
do you guys stunt?
Yes.
Okay, because that's really gotten the right side of this line. Like, so Torrance, the right guard, he has really struggled with stunts, and knowing who to pick up. He's gotten caught helping on the inside. And then, with simulated pressures and sending a guy on the outside, like a corner, has gotten Spencer Brown on the right side. So that right side has had some communication and some issues.
Yeah, so the Texans struggle with stunts too, and probably shouldn't with as many veterans and as much time as they've played. But, so they don't do it a lot, but what they will do sometimes is they don't do it a lot, but it's I tell you what, when you do see it and you see Will Anderson sneak around and then
he's so athletic, man.
And you see 51 flying and it's like, oh God, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
But they trust those guys to rush together, win, and then push it up into the defensive tackles. That's why initially Fadakasi and Edwards had some success from a sack standpoint.
Yeah.
If they could get more push up the middle, I think that would help Anderson and Hunter's sack totals a little bit. But I think with this guy, all bets are off. It's
right. How do they do against a mobile quarterback? Speaking of which.
They killed Caleb Williams, so it's tough to say against him.
Right. Different kind of mobile guy.
Yeah. Here's what they will do. They will, and they did this against Darnold, and this would be my scary thing for Allen because he can do this. Sometimes they vacated a spot, and then there's a big gaping hole. The first touchdown Darnold threw against them, I think Settle probably cut it inside too much.
Yeah.
And then Darnold was just kind of, boop, 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 boop. Oh, there's Justin Jefferson because you can't cover for 6 seconds.
Right.
And then boom. So they'll do that from time to time. That's why, we hear every week, hey, they have to rush together. Everybody has to do exactly what they're supposed to do with the defensive line.
If you get out of your lane against Josh, he loves to run through those, man. Loves it.
From a takeoff standpoint or just an extend the play and hit somebody on a deep one.
Yep.
So that'd be the scary part for me from the Texans defensive line is if they get out of their lanes and he has a big day.
You'll watch the tackles. So Dawkins is doing this new thing this year where he actually is lining up literally on the line of scrimmage. It's crazy. Instead of, how they've been trying to cheat back as far as possible. Well, he's doing the opposite. He's ahead of the guard almost. And what he's been doing is he's inviting a speed rush around the edge. And then he's so athletic and long-armed, he just guides the guy wide and forces him wide. Now he can get beat on moves back inside or power, really. Speed to power can get him, but he's so damn athletic. And then Josh loves it because then he knows he can step up in that lane. Spencer Brown is another one where if you speed rush him, he loves it. His arms are so long. He's so athletic. He'll just guide you along and just stay there in phase. And then Josh has a huge hole to step up in. So that's something I'm interested in if those guys are trying to win on the outside on speed.
Man, so Brown and Hunter's going to be the fun one then, because
Okay.
Danielle Hunter is. I used this example a couple weeks ago. He's Greg Maddux because he's got every pitch, but he's also Randy Johnson because he'll just run through you too. Like he. So it's funny, they call Will Anderson the Terminator and they call Danielle Hunter the Cyborg, because they're both they look like they're carved out of granite. They're super strong. Will doesn't have as many moves, but Danielle's got everything. He'll pull out whatever he needs. If it's a spin, if he needs to get rid of the arms, if it's power, if it's speed, like he'll throw everything at you. So then that's the fun one then. So if
that inside spin move,
yeah, so Danielle's not
that'll
gonna
work.
He's not gonna want to get tricked. So
Okay.
he'll throw all the moves at Brown and try to win that way and keep his territory safe. It's Anderson I worry about, because there's just sometimes it's like when Chris Farley gets excited in a movie and you just see him going, like that's Will Anderson sometimes. Like I compare him in his stance. Like you watch him when he gets in his stance, it looks like a garage spring. You're not supposed to mess with your own garage. You're supposed to call an expert. Like it's like a garage spring. And sometimes when he springs out of there, the other guy's got no shot. And then sometimes it's kind of like what you said. I'm happy for you to go this way. Like I'll show you the route, and then it's not, and then there's nothing there, and you're like, oh gosh, I messed up. So there's still a learning curve for Anderson, but God, the athleticism is just so freaky sometimes.
That's gonna be a great battle on the outside.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, well, let's get to your Texans blueprint to victory. What's like 2 or 3 things that you think need to happen for the Texans to win this game?
Well, they just have got to run the football better than they have been, and I don't think they need to even be necessarily good. They just got to be average on the ground. I mean, they had 70. Here's what they had. They had 3.7 yards per carry from running backs against the Jaguars. And that's the Jaguars, who already are talent deficient. They're missing their top 2 linebackers, and Josh Hines-Allen went out in the middle of the game. So you got to be able to run the football better than that. And so they've got to run the football better. And it's not because like they want to do what Baltimore did. They're not capable of that.
Right.
They've got to keep C.J. Stroud out of these 2nd and longs and 3rd and longs. Like we all week we've been dissecting their end of half, against Jacksonville. And at one point they had a 1st and 20 that they had to overcome to try to put points on the board. They've got to stay out of these 2nd and 3rd and longs. Now they ran the ball a little bit better on 2nd down, but still it's not good enough. So they got to run the ball better and give Stroud 2nd and 3rd and manageable. And that's when he will just tear people apart. This is get somebody that's not Nico involved. That's another thing. I don't know if it's Stephon Diggs in a revenge game situation. I don't know if it's Tank Dell, now that he's healthy, asked CJ Stroud about it. He said, yeah, we just got to do what we do on offense. We're not worried about what Tank did last year. We want to get him going this year. But at the same time, we need to get him the ball, and I need to get him his fair share of targets. And then when we asked Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator, about it, he said, listen, Tank Dell, he's a different kind of fast in that the way he strides, the way that he moves, he gets onto defensive backs fast, and then his route running is precise, so he gets away from guys. And he's like, we've got to do a better job of using Tank Dell and that success that he does have against defensive backs. People kind of pigeonhole Dell as a slot guy. He played outside more than he played in the slot last year. But the unfortunate part is through 3 games, the Texans made him a gadget guy. Like they treated him, they were doing, handoffs and reverses and screens, and let him go run some routes. And see. And then Diggs, I mean, he was very diplomatic when he was asked about this week. The most he would say is this game matters more because it's an AFC team and it's a team that should be in the playoff conversation. Like that's the most he would allow. And I thought, okay, that's very diplomatic. And then we asked Nico Collins, And we said, is there a little bit more in the wide receiver room for Stephon Diggs? Absolutely. We know how much this one means to him. It's like, okay, okay. So this one does mean more than your usual game. So Diggs ran a touchdown in last week on a trick play that fell apart. He scored the first touchdown of the season.
He's been mostly in the slot. Is that right? Or primarily in the slot?
Okay. Yeah. So slot primarily until this most recent game, but Tank didn't play. So with Tank back, I would say mostly slot for Diggs. And he was the best offensive player in training camp. He was awesome. It hasn't quite totally translated to a totality of a game yet, but he's had some stuff wiped away because of penalties. He had a 20-yard catch and run that got wiped away from a holding penalty last week. So the stats are probably even better than they look when you look at the box score because of some of the stuff that's been called back. So get somebody that's not Nico involved because you just need it. And I think it's probably Diggs for this game. Even though we've talked about Dell, it's probably Diggs. And then defensively, don't beat yourself. Like, make Buffalo beat you. If you're going to sit there and tip your cap and say, hey, that guy's just too good, so be it. But I sit here and I think about 7 missed Trevor Lawrence throws, and I think about 5 missed Anthony Richardson throws. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't bode well for a guy that can actually put the ball where it needs to go, like Josh Allen. And I think back to what Darnold did when Darnold wasn't feeling any heat and he was on schedule. He put the ball wherever it needed to go. He needed 9, he got 10. He won on some deep outs. He won over the middle. And now you heat Darnold up, he started throwing it in the dirt. You heat Josh up, he could still do everything. So you do worry a little bit about Josh Allen. So make the Bills beat you. Make them be excellent. Kincaid worries me a lot. Even Knox to an extent. I don't know exactly what the snap distribution's been, but if they wanted to put both those guys on the field, they would find 2 mismatches, I believe.
They do. It's something they haven't really done yet. They haven't really featured them yet. So yeah, it would be great if they brought that out because really, I think the highest output for Kincaid's like 4 catches. So they haven't really featured him. And Knox, I think he's been targeted, I think, twice at the most in a game. So yeah.
I think the way I think about it from a defensive perspective for the Texans is, hey, if Superman's going to beat you, Superman's going to beat you. If he's going to put the cape on and beat you, what else could you do? So just score enough that it makes it difficult for him to do that. Because if he's really got to stand back there and deliver, I love the Texans cornerback matchup. Yep. I love them versus any of the outside guys that the Bills are going to put out there. And if Shakir isn't going to go, Shakir, I forget how to say it.
Yeah.
If he's not going to go, I really love the coverage matchup. That's where Kincaid gets a little worrisome.
He's probably not going to go. They're usually pretty conservative on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I imagine on a short week on the road with an ankle, they probably won't, but they've surprised us before. But yeah, he hasn't practiced, so I would guess that's going to be Curtis Samuel then, and that's a guy that we thought would be featured way more that hasn't. So
I don't. Look, Keon Coleman was one of my absolute favorite players in this year's draft, but I'm just not worried about. This is
not a game for him.
I'm not worried about Keon Coleman. I'm not worried about Mac Hollins. I'm not worried about anybody else that runs out there from the outside. I think the defense coordinator Matt Burke talked about the triangle inside, the running back, tight end, slot receiver that Buffalo has had so much success with. I'm worried about Cook out of the backfield. I'm worried about Kincaid. I'm worried about stuff over the middle. I have no fear on the sidelines. And obviously I'm sitting here telling you this. You hit a double move on Kamari Lassiter and Josh hits the guy, in the wide.
So they've been trying that with MVS. So they've been trying to get him on the field and hit some deep shots with him when they get cover 1. So that's something to be interested in, but they haven't connected on it yet. So
I the Texans are built to get a lead and then unleash hell from a pass rush perspective. So if they can do that, I feel pretty good. I just worry about Cook wearing down the defense, and I worry about 3 and outs putting the defense right back on the field, and they got to run all over God's green earth trying to chase down Josh Allen. and then by the middle of the third quarter, they're sucking wind and they can't get their wind back, and then they just get beat up. Like that's what I'm worried about from a Texans perspective.
Okay. Any player props that you're interested in, or anything that jumps out on you?
I mean, Diggs touchdown for sure, right?
Right.
I mean,
I think Diggs everything. I think over receptions, over yards, touchdown.
Yes. I mean, I think I saw it at plus 150, plus 170, some different places. So Diggs anytime touchdown. Heck, I mean, if you want to go 2 touchdowns, I think you're getting plus 900 at some places. So that's worth a little sprinkle.
I like it. Yeah.
So I would say Diggs. I mean, I'll take Nico over everything until the end of time. That's
a great matchup because wide receivers have not done well against either Bills corner. The Bills outside corners are phenomenal. Christian Benford's right now is rating in the top of all cornerbacks, and then Rasul Douglas has been up there for a long time. He's having another good year. But like I said, they run a lot of zone, and the inside is where you can get them. So I could see Nico just feasting on those deep ins and seam routes, stuff like that. So
yeah. So I go kind of over Nico everything until he proves me wrong.
Right.
And then look, I would probably sprinkle in a Hunter sack or a Anderson sack. If you want a little player prop action on that standpoint. And then I'd probably throw a Kincaid touchdown in there too, just because they haven't faced a tight end like him. And I know it probably hasn't been massive, awesome tight end production to this level that I think most people maybe wanted out of him to this point, but they haven't faced a guy like him. So a Kincaid touchdown would be something I'd think about too.
Awesome. I like it. All right. Well, what about your score prediction? How do you think this one's going to go?
Whew, man. The Texans have had issues facing whoever they're facing and facing the Houston Texans. That's been the story of the 3 games since the Colts game. I don't know that they've cleaned all of that up just yet. So if it's Texans versus Bills and Texans, I like the Bills. I like the Bills like slightly more than the Texans. Let's go 27-21. 27-21. Stroud's got a chance to win it at the end. Maybe doesn't come up with it.
I like it. Sounds like a good game to watch.
Yeah. I think. Well, look, I saw the coverage map. Most of America's getting this game.
Yeah, crazy that they put it at 1:00, but I'm guessing it's probably for that reason. They wanted one marquee matchup at 1.
Yeah, most of America's getting this game, and it's not Nance and Romo. Come on.
Right.
What are they doing here?
Yeah, we only get them when we play Kansas City. So
that's right. Yeah, Nance probably got a condo there. As often as they go there.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cody. I really, really appreciate it. You tell everyone what you got coming up and where they can find you for the rest of this week.
Yeah, so we got plenty of stuff on the YouTube channel. Just throw it in on YouTube, Cody Stoots, CODYSTOOTS. You'll find it live on Friday afternoons, live on Mondays, 8 a.m. to recap the game, and then tons of recorded videos throughout the weekend and stuff like that. My favorite one of my favorites ones, it's Who Better Ball. And it's you take a role player. It can't be a star. It can't be a stud. You take a role player, explain why they got a ball out for that team to win. So that's one of my favorites that I like to do. So that'll be a good one. That'll be a fun one. And, and then, again, throw it in the Google machine. You'll find whatever you need.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I won't take up any more of your time, but I really, really appreciate it. And definitely, guys, go check them out and follow them on all socials, please.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, man. And I would say go Bills, just not this week. Not this week.
Right. I'm there for you. I'm rooting for the Texans too, just not this week. So
there you go.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Well, lots of comments to catch up in the chat, but first I want to thank Cody again, Cody Stoots. Find him on all socials at Cody Stoots. As you can see, super knowledgeable, really, really great breakdown there on the Texans side of the house. Now I'll catch us up on some of the injury stuff, and then I'll fill us in on some of the Bills stuff, some fun facts. We'll get right into it. So start with the injury report. On the Bills side, let me catch up on a couple chats first. Johnny was chirping a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Johnny, for tuning in. We'll go over some of your comments for sure. Let's see. Joe Mixon and Al Shahir being out. We'll see about Al Shahir. We'll cover him in a little bit. But yeah, Joe Mixon being out definitely changes that whole dynamic of the Texans offense. I think he brings that nasty that they really need. Thanks, Paul. Really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Quite a bit of Texans fans in the chat. Really appreciate you guys checking us out and following Cody over to the show. Like I said, he's one of the best. Really appreciate him giving me his time. Let's see what else. Yeah, he covered that. Like Tank being back, I think is really nice. He just has something different, that speed element and the yards after the catch. You definitely like having him back for that. Whittle, appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Yep, Johnny, I agree with you about Autry. I think like Mixon, he's a force. Definitely changes the dynamic of that team. All right, let's hop into the Bills side of the injury report. As you can see, the Texans aren't the only team that's dealing with a bunch of injuries. The Bills are as well, to some key guys. So we'll go over who's been officially ruled out and then who's going to step in their place. First one we'll go over is Austin Johnson. He's the Bills' second nose tackle. He comes in and spells Daquan Jones in the middle, run stopping, but has a little pass rush to him. He's kind of brought a little more pass rush than I was even expecting, but he's been solid in run stop. So him being out is big. That puts more on Daquan, who really hasn't been as good this year as I've hoped. I was expecting more from Daquan. Really good start the last year. Then he had the injury and missed the middle of the season. Came back strong, but man, he has just not been it this year, man. He's just not looked like himself. So I'm hoping Daquan Jones can step up in the absence of Austin Johnson. They called up Branson Dean from the practice squad. He flashed some in camp and in preseason, so hopefully he can come in and make some plays in the interior. They also signed Zion Logue from the Atlanta Falcons practice squad, a rookie from Georgia, big body, 6'6", hopefully can be a rotational piece. Bills also have Dwayne Carter as well from Duke as a rookie in the interior, so I'm sure they'll split those reps from Austin Johnson between Branson Dean and Carter and Zion Logue. You might also see some of their edges come inside, like Smoot and AJ Epinesa. They like to reduce them down in the middle on passing downs to help on the interior pass rush. Let's see, we got some comments. Yeah, Whittle, I agree. You saw in practice his two middle fingers aren't taped anymore. So you're seeing I think it's progressing on the injury. He did practice with the glove though this week, so I don't know. I guess I'd probably be surprised if he didn't have the glove this game and some padding in there, but it's at least moving in the right direction. Hopefully the gloves come off. We haven't seen it impacting him too much, so that's good. But I definitely think they've been cautious calling running plays with him and not trying to injure that thing worse. Paul, I will go over my score prediction and keys to victory and stuff in a little bit. So I usually do that towards the end of the show. Texans fan, really like number 3. It's really great to see 3 back for the Bills. Go Texans. Yeah, it was great. I mean, it's a great story. With DeMar being back, he's played pretty well. I don't think anyone ever expected him to be like a starter, everyday starter, and even, a quality starter even from the beginning. I think 5th round draft pick. And so Yeah, it's great to see him battle back. Last year, you could definitely tell he was working through it. I think mentally for sure. In this camp, he played really good in camp and preseason, and I think you could argue he earned that spot. We'll see if he holds on to it with Cole Bishop and Mike Edwards back there. They also signed Lewis Seen from the Vikings, so we'll see if Hamlin can hold on to the starting job. But so far, he's been I would say he's been um, average. And so yeah, he's definitely been at least starter level. How do the Texans stop Josh Allen? Uh, a great question. I mean, I think if they can get pressure on him with Hunter and their other edge, I think that is huge. I think if Josh starts getting a little quick, he's getting some early pressure and some quick pressure, that'll speed him up and make him less consistent. And I think that's really what you want to do is you want to Josh up, and if anything, make him not go through his progressions and get him on the move. And that's how you kind of get Josh off his game. If he's able to sit back there and feel comfortable, yeah, it's game over, man. That you're not going to get that offense off the field. Yeah, I agree, Whittle. Getting Bernard back is going to be huge. So we'll go over to the next injury. So, Ed Oliver being out is, I think, massive. I don't think anyone saw that coming. It kind of came out of nowhere. He popped up on Thursday did not practice. Or sorry, he popped up on Thursday with a hamstring, and then Friday did not practice, and has now been ruled out. So, that's the Bills' disruptor on the interior. He causes chaos on the interior, especially in the pass rush, and he's usually good for a negative play or two in the run game. So him being out of there on the interior is a really big loss. And yeah, these defensive line injuries for the Bills really add up. It's kind of like for the Texans, as far as you're losing your rotational pieces and depth and stuff like that, and so it strains your starters. Well, for the Bills, you're losing your starters. So they're losing Von Miller, who's been their best pass rusher so far this year. He's kind of turned back the clock a little and looked like Von Miller of old. And then Ed Oliver on the inside has been, arguably a top 10 interior defensive tackle last year, and so now he's out. So those are two major losses for the Bills, and really this is the team that you want pass rush against. So I'm not sure what the plan is for Babich, if he's going to try to bring some pressure. The Bills don't blitz a lot. They'll do simulated pressures, but they don't blitz a lot. But you can't let Stroud sit back there and just pick you apart. So they're going to have to do something, because I definitely think the impact of Ed being out and Vaughn being out is going to hurt the pass rush. I'm not super worried about the run game with Vaughn being out, with Mixon being out. I think the Bills will be fine with limiting the run enough. Damian Pierce, if he's able to come and play, that might bring a little different element of power, but I don't think they're too worried about the Texans' run game. Next one is Khalil Shakir. Him being out is pretty big. I think most Bills fans would argue he's been the Bills' best receiver since week 10 last year, all the way through this year. Him and Josh have really gotten on the same page. He's kind of his third down go-to, or when Josh really needs a play. And definitely on the scramble drill, Shakir has a really good feel for finding the open areas. So I think that's a big loss. He might not put up huge numbers, but he's been solid for 4 or 5 catches and 50 to 60 yards. And he always, after the catch, he always makes really good plays. So I think that's gonna be tough having him out. That's basically the Bills' top receiver right now. Tyrell Shavers is the practice squad call up for him. I do think, though, Curtis Samuel is going to be taking more of that role and taking those snaps. So I know a lot of people myself included, had pretty high hopes for Curtis Samuel and what he could do and bring to this offense, especially since his days in Carolina with Joe Brady. But it just hasn't happened so far this year. He did have a turf toe in preseason and camp, so I'm wondering if that's kind of limited Curtis Samuel some, and that's why we haven't seen him do more. But talk about a perfect spot to step up and and to be a guy, to make a big impact. It's this game. So I'm looking for Curtis Samuel to step in for Shakir, get some of those slot reps, and make some big plays. I think he can do everything that the Bills were asking Shakir to do. They're a little bit different of a player, but I think as far as schematically for the offense, they can do the same thing. Yeah, I don't know about Keon game. I think Texans fans would tell you that they like their corners, especially down the field and in jump ball situations. I'm not sure I want to test Stingley and even Lassiter and jump ball situations. Now the way that Josh has been developing that, the back shoulder throws to Keon, I don't know if that's necessarily guardable when both the wide receiver and the quarterback are on the same page and you're throwing those back shoulders. So that could be something if they get that going, but I don't know if it's going to be so much a Coleman game. I definitely think if they move him in the slot some, it could be, or they go big packages for sure, and the tight ends too. I'm definitely going to hit on the 12 personnel piece in a little bit, whittle and what I think of that, and kind of what I think Brady should have the game plan for the Bills be. But that's a great point. All right, to go back to the injury report, though, Taylor Rapp's the other player out for the Bills that has already been ruled out. Cole Bishop's going to be named the starter. He's a rookie out of Utah. It'll be his first start. Last game against the Ravens was really his first action in game, so we'll see. I do trust McDermott, though, and Babbage to have their safeties ready to go. And if they're trusting him over a veteran like Mike Edwards, that's got to say something about where they think his game is. I do think it's interesting how those two are going to match up, though, with Hamlin and Bishop playing as a pair, because I think it's interesting that Bishop's the guy to get the call up and play that side, more like the free safety side. I know the Bills like to switch their safeties a lot, and they ask them to do different things, and they're not necessarily your traditional, strong side and free safety, but I thought they were using Rapp way more than I thought they would in a deep safety role, and then now they have Bishop come in, and I didn't think that was a strong part of his game, was to be, the deep safety spot on the field. I liked him more down in the box, coming forward, and then matching up on tight ends and even bigger receivers and running backs. So I'm interested to see schematically what they do, because they must trust him if they're willing to go with him over Mike Edwards. I'm guessing Mike Edwards dresses this game. That'll be the first game he's dressed. Veteran, coming from Kansas City and Tampa Bay, he started on Super Bowl teams. So yeah, it's got to say something that Cole Bishop gets the start over Mike Edwards. Whittle, you asked about the new defensive tackle. I don't know a ton about him. I read his scouting report, and I watched a little bit of his tape from the preseason. Kind of a freak, athletically, 6'6", big guy, got some burst to him. Was kind of buried on that Georgia line, and so I don't think he got to show really what he's capable of. That Georgia line's so talented that you can be a phenomenal player and not get action. So I thought he was good. He looked good in preseason as well. Good against the run, but he's got some burst. So I'm interested to see him in some pass rushing situations. I'm not sure if he's kind of more of an insurance thing right now. With having Dean and Carter having to take on more snaps, and they just need more depth overall. But, they sign him to the active roster from the Falcons practice squad. So you don't do that unless you think a guy can come in and at least take some snaps and play. I say all that and then watch they don't even dress him. But no, I think he'll get some run, and I think he'll be all right. So his tape looked pretty good. All right, so we'll go over to questionable now. The big ones obviously are Taron Johnson and Terrell Bernard. Taron, I don't think he's going to play. I would love for him to play. I think this game really, really demands that he plays. I'm worried about Cam Lewis in the slot, and obviously Taron is on another level, or maybe even a couple levels higher than Cam Lewis as far as coverage in the slot. I have not loved Cam's pass coverage so far this year, so Taron coming in would be a major step up. But I watched some of the practice videos, and it didn't look like he wanted to use his arm. Like, and when he did make a catch or something, he was shaking out his hand and shaking his arm. Um, he did say in an interview that he'll wear a padding on that arm, probably for the whole year. But I just worry that he's still got some pain in there, and it's not right yet. So I'd be pretty shocked if Taron Johnson plays, even though they could really use him in the slot this game. Terrell Bernard, though, I think, has got a really good shot to play. He got the red non-contact jersey taken off this week, and you saw him do some tackling drills, and he looked good. So he was doing the tackling dummy and falling to the ground and lifting up on some of the blocking drills. And so I'd be pretty shocked if he didn't play. But I do think there's a chance he might be on limited snaps or maybe situationally. So if you remember, like way back, it might have been maybe Milano's like rookie year, he had a similar pec injury. And when he came back, they had him in on passing downs, and they didn't have him in on early downs for against the run. Try to limit his tackling and stuff like that, and block shedding. So you could see something like that, and maybe Terrell Bernard just comes in on long and late passing downs and gets Spector off the field, because Spector in pass coverage has not been great. But I do like Spector, on first down and playing the run and coming downhill. So I think that's something interesting to watch if Bernard does play, what his snap share will look like and what they ask him to do. Let's go over to the Texans side. Pull up their injury report. So for the Texans, it's like the Bills, man. It's a mess. Both teams are a mess right now. Ruled out is, as Cody said, was Derek Barnett, Joe Mixon, and Jerry Hughes. So Barnett and Hughes are the rotational pieces on the edge. So that's a pretty big loss. Obviously they have their top two, but you need to spell them, and you don't want too much of a drop off with those guys off the field. So losing your third and fourth edge defenders is a big deal. And then Joe Mixon obviously is the tone setter in the run game. The run game with him out has been nowhere near the same as when he's in. I'm interested to see if Dameon Pierce plays. It's a hamstring, so I don't know if they want to mess around with it, but they sure could use him. I know he wasn't as good last year as his rookie year, but he's a hard runner, and that's the kind of running back that can have success against the Bills. The Bills miss a lot of tackles, and if you can run hard and break some arm tackles, you can have some success against this Bills defense. So I think Pierce is the right kind of style to give the Bills a little trouble. So we'll see if he goes. I talked about with Johnny, the new one that popped up today was the middle linebacker Azeez Al-Shahir. He popped up on the injury report today as questionable now with an illness. That would be pretty major. I mean, anytime you're messing around with your middle linebacker, that's a big deal. So we'll see if he's able to go. I think that definitely changes what that defense wants to do with him not in there. He's been very good for them, knows the system well, having come over from San Francisco with D'Amico Ryans. And so, yeah, I think him coming out is trouble. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. So as Johnny said, he'll be checking out the report. If Shahir can't go, it'll be Henry. I'm not even going to try to say his name because I've butchered it like 25 times. But it'll be Henry from Alabama, and then Jake Hansen as well. And then Neville Hewitt as the backup. He came from the Jets, I believe. So they, like the Bills, run primarily nickel. And Petrie kind of plays their big nickel slot. So I don't think they'll have to run too many three linebacker sets. That's kind of getting into Whittle's point, where Whittle was saying, we should see some 12 personnel. And I agree with him on that as far as, I think this is a chance for the Bills to dictate terms of this game. Like, I want, especially with Shakir being out, get to 12 personnel, get your sixth lineman on, Alec Anderson, and play some bully ball. Force the Texans to have to defend the run and even to change personnel and try to combat what the Bills can do in the run game with big people. So I definitely really like that idea, Whittle. That's going to be featured later in my blueprint to victory. But yeah, I think with the injuries that they're having on the D line, let's pound the rock, man. Let's get him in run defense. I think you can run at Danielle Hunter and kind of neutralize him, and that's what I would do. I would run right at him, especially with the Bills line this year. I think you get them running early. That offensive line likes to set the tone early, and then it really helps them in pass pro going forward. So you've seen kind of when we started the games, pass first. The O-line struggled a little more. So I'd love that. Go big personnel, pound the rock, and then throw off of that once you get the defense kind of guessing a little bit. I want to transition to a couple fun facts about this matchup. So Josh Allen is 14-4 after a loss. Really good bounce back. I think this is a good bounce back spot. Also, Josh Allen in a dome during the regular season is 8-1 with 18 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and he's got 8 rushing touchdowns. I think he really likes playing in domes. He's obviously got the arm to play in any weather, but I think when conditions are perfect, he really thrives. So that'll be an interesting one. The Texans and Stroud specifically play much better at home as well. So it could be maybe a neutralizer as Josh plays well in the dome, and then so does Stroud. So we'll have to see about that. Yeah, I agree, Whittle. I don't mind Spector against the run if we have to, but yeah, if he's not on the field, I'm happy, man. Bernard is a major upgrade over him, and the more snaps Bernard can be on the field, the better tomorrow. So yeah, I think you bring up a really good point there. Some facts about the Houston D that I thought were interesting. They've given up the fewest receptions and receiving yards to running backs, and that's something that Brady's like to feature is getting Cook and really all 3 running backs out in space and get them one-on-one. So the Texans have been doing a really good job limiting that. I don't know if that's more like circumstance or game script. Definitely something I think the Bills should still do and test them because the Bills are so good at it, but just something to think about. Texans defense has also given up the second fewest receptions and the fewest yards to tight ends. I thought that was interesting as well, but you dive a little deeper into it and you see who the Texans defense has played at tight end. So the first game was against the Colts. Like, they don't have a tight end right now. They played Chicago, who's got Cole Kmet, but he's not anything fantastic. They played Minnesota with no T.J. Hawkinson, and they played Jacksonville with no Evan Ingram. So they haven't really played tight ends, even near the caliber of Kincaid and Knox. So I definitely think big personnel and challenge them over the middle and see how they do against some quality tight ends. And then also the Houston defense has allowed the 4th most passing touchdowns to quarterbacks. Like I said in the interview with Cody, the Houston D has done a good job limiting the passer as far as volume. So they haven't allowed a quarterback to throw over 200 yards against them. But some of that, again, is game script dependent. But they have given up the 4th most passing touchdowns to quarterbacks. I agree with you, Whittle. As far as Spector and Williams, they both like to trigger fast and then get them in trouble in play action. I do wonder this game, though, this matchup fits very well for their style as far as, like, I don't think they need to trigger downhill fast to try to stop the run. So if I'm Babbage, if I'm McDermott, I'm telling them, like, guys, chill. You don't have to fire downhill so fast. Give it a sec. Don't let play action beat you this game because I don't think there's such a dire need to stop the run. I don't think this Houston run game has been anything great without Mixon. Laura, you're trapped with Cole Kmet in fantasy this week. I actually like his matchup this week, so I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think I got him over receptions, yards, and even anytime touchdowns. So I think you're all right this week. The matchup's pretty good for him. Thanks for tuning in, though. All right, so let's go. Some interesting things about the Bills defense I haven't covered yet. They've allowed the seventh most rushing yards to running backs, and again, like I think that is kind of game script specific. Traditionally, the Bills, like the Texans, run nickel. Will invite you to run with light boxes, and they try to keep the lid on the defense and not allow big explosive plays through the passing game. But they have given up a lot of yards, and last week against the Ravens, you saw they gave up a lot of yards. So right now they've given up the seventh most, but without Mixon in there for the Texans, I'm not as worried about that. So I think that's a big thing for the Bills, is the loss of Mixon, and then we'll see if Pierce plays. Like I said before, if he plays, that might change things a little, but we'll see. Also, the Bills' defense has given up the most receiving yards and the second most receptions to running backs. So it's something to watch. I know with Mixon out and Pierce out, they've had different running backs in there. And last week against the Jags, they were able to score that touchdown on a running back catch, so out of the backfield. So that's something the Bills have struggled with. Part of that has to do with your slot and both linebackers being backups. And so covering running backs has been an issue out of the backfield. Buffalo, though, has allowed the least receiving yards to wide receivers so far this season, and they've also allowed the sixth fewest catches. So I'm definitely interested to see how Nico does this game. I mean, the dude is a monster. He's, in my opinion, probably the second best wide receiver in football right now. Just so big and tough to cover. Does a really good job at the top of his routes, using his physicality to create separation. Like I said with Cody, his in-breaking routes are so good. And he hasn't had a game yet this year under 86 receiving yards. So I think it's a good test for Buffalo's secondary, but they do a really good job limiting big pass plays and explosive plays. So it'll be good against good there. I'm excited to see that. Where I think the Bills' defense could be got in the pass game is the slot and the running backs. So with Cam Lewis playing slot, if Taryn can't go, I think that's definitely an area where the Texans can exploit it. Diggs in the slot could really have a big game here. Also, if they drop Tank Dell into the slot as well, that could be trouble for the Bills. I just don't think Cam matches up very well against either of those guys. So hopefully Taryn can go, but I really doubt it. So for the blueprint to a Bills victory, on the Bills defense, I got limit explosive plays in the pass game. Make the Texans have to grind it out, drive down the field. The Texans have committed over 40 penalties this year, most in the NFL, and it's kind of been primarily on offense. So they've kind of been shooting themselves in the foot. And so I'm interested to see if the Bills can limit explosives, limit the run game. Can they methodically drive the ball down the field and put up points if they're still committing penalties and giving themselves long and late downs? Because that's where the Bills defense really excels, is long and late downs. Where's Ingram? I wouldn't mind if he swapped in for Cam, but he'll come in the dime looks. He might have a role in this game. We'll see. It depends. They like to run a lot 11. And they'll run some 12. So we'll see how much Ingram gets in there. I definitely think if we can get him in long and late, Ingram will come in because they're going to get Dorian off the field as fast as possible in passing downs. So I think Ingram will get in there. I'm not sure who they'll match him up on, though. I'm not sure if he's a better matchup against Diggs, though. I mean, I think even if Diggs has lost a step, his short area quickness is still there, and he's such a good route runner. So I'm not sure I want Ingram or Cam on Diggs. But, yeah, you bring up a good point. I'd probably rather Ingram than Cam at this point on him. Next up on the Bills' blueprint to victory on defense is someone has to step up and make some plays. Someone needs to make some negative plays or a takeaway. With Vaughn out, with Ed Oliver out, someone's got to make a big play. Ingram's a good name to bring up there. Whittle as well. He's had a couple interceptions and some big moments, big pass breakups on key fourth downs. So yeah, someone's got to step up like that and make a splash play, turn the ball over, and get Josh some extra possessions. For the offense for Buffalo, I think you got to go big personnel, like Whittle said. With Shakir out, I want to see a lot of 12 personnel, even 22, 21 personnel. Get two backs in there, and bring in your big tight end, your big sixth lineman, Alec Anderson, and play some bully ball, man. Like pound the rock, play action off of it. This is a game where you could see MVS doing his double moves and try to get him for a big one down the field. But I definitely think the Bills have the advantage in the box when they can run their big personnel and run out of that. I think the Texans might struggle there. So that's definitely a big key for me for the offense. I also want them to get back to their pre-snap motion. They did way less of it against the Ravens. It's free money, man. Like, I don't know why more offenses don't run pre-snap motion. It's free information. It causes communication for the defense. They have to adjust. They have to realign. And you're forcing them to have to move from where they naturally want to set up on defense. There's no reason not to do it. So hopefully Babbage gets back to some of the pre-snap motion and even some of the post-snap motion. I definitely think in 12 personnel, shifting guys from different sides of the formations should be a big part of that. The second one for blueprint to Bills' victory on offense is run the ball and set up Josh to pick and choose his spots. Don't just make this a drop back game. Like, there doesn't need to be a drop back game. Like, I think you run the ball to set up the pass. That doesn't mean run the ball more than you pass. It just means set the tone early with the run, make them think about it, and then let Josh pick and choose his moments with play action and with going deep. And I think that will set the game script up much better than just starting the game off right away trying to throw the ball. I wouldn't mind seeing Elam on third downs. We should be bringing the pressure on third downs. Yeah, I've definitely heard people bring that up as far as bringing Elam in as your third corner. I just don't know if he's a good fit for the inside. I like his game more on press on the outside. And so if you do that, I don't know who you bring on the inside because, none of our corners are quick and shifty outside of Taryn. So I'm not sure who. Maybe I doubt the Bills would take Cam Lewis off the field and put Ingram in the slot and then have Elam play like dime or something like that. But yeah, I think you definitely want to try some stuff, bring in some different wrinkles. And yeah, like Cody had said with Stroud, like you want to show him some different things. Like he's very good at the small details of learning where guys are, where their drops are, where they are in when they run certain formations and where the defense is going to be, and then he throws away from it. So if you can change that picture for him, if you can change up tendencies and tells on Stroud, I think that's where you have a chance to get him to hold the ball a little longer. You could kick Douglas inside. Again, though, I don't want to see him on like Tank Dell or something and Tank Dell run a crossing route. Like that's not where you want Douglas. Even against Diggs, I don't really want to see him chasing a guy across the field. So I don't know. I think that's just where Taryn is just such a massive force multiplier when he can play and get in the game. Like he allows the defense to just do so many different things that they can't do without him. All right, so as far as player props, I got Diggs going over 4.5 receptions. I think they're going to want to get him the ball for why they think this is like a Diggs revenge game. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you look for any type of motivation in a game, but I mean, dude, we're eating $30+ million because he wanted to leave the Bills. Like, if anything, it's a Bills revenge game against Diggs because he's screwing us over. Like, there's no revenge for him to get on us. Like, so that's just a funny narrative. I think Bills fans have talked about that some this week, and it's just kind of silly that the Texans have been saying that. But hey, whatever you got to do to get up for a game, that's fine. But I do think if Cam Lewis has got to match him in the slot, that is a big advantage to Diggs. So I got him over 4.5 receptions. I don't know how much, big gains he's going to get or big yards, but I definitely think they're going to get him the ball early. And so getting over that 4 catches is not going to be too big of a problem. I have James Cook over 2.5 receptions. Like I said, Brady likes to get the running backs involved in the pass game. I think this is a good game for that. And Cook's been over that number, I think, 3 out of 4 games. So I have Cook over 2.5 receptions. And then I have MVS over 11.5 yards. I think with Shakir out, he might get a little more run. And really with him, that's like 1 catch. So I like MVS over 11.5. Touchdown props, I like Diggs anytime, like Cody said. Last I saw was plus 165. I think he's good in the short areas. Again, I think it's a mismatch on our slots unless Taryn's playing, so I like him as an anytime touchdown. I like Josh Allen as an anytime touchdown too at plus 120. I think anytime you can get plus money on Josh on an anytime touchdown, you should take it. We haven't seen too much of him on the ground, but I think this could be a game where he uses his legs some, especially with his hand seemingly to do better. As a flyer, I like Ty Johnson as an anytime touchdown. It's plus 750. He's kind of been a little bit of the red zone back, and especially out of the backfield. So it's worth a flyer at plus 750. As far as score prediction, so I've gone back and forth on this. I think the injuries are really going to change up this game. I think if we play this game week, whatever in the playoffs, it's going to be a completely different matchup as far as personnel and who's available to play. So it's a little tough to predict game script with so many different injuries. But I do like this spot for the Bills coming off the loss in a dome. And I like the offense being able to move the ball and put up some points. So I have the Bills winning 27-24. I could easily see that flipped around. I think it's going to come down to if the Texans are going to make, shoot themselves with penalties and mistakes. The Bills aren't really a team you want to do that with. And then, for the Bills, like if they're the one who makes, mistakes with so many backups in and penalties or turnover, then I could totally see the Texans winning this game. But right now I have the Bills winning 27-24. Next up for us, we have a new Sunday morning show. I'll be jumping on No One to Blame. It's going to be at 10 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. Join Jesse, Kevin, and myself. We'll go over each and every game of the Week 5 slate. We'll give you the picks for each game, the player props that we like for each game, and break each one down for you. We'll probably be going till about 12:30 Eastern Time, so we'll be there to get any injury updates, stuff like that, and we'll call any of those out as that news happens. And then we'll also do FanDuel daily fantasy lineups and some strategy. We haven't really talked about that yet, so we're excited to start doing some daily fantasy lineups. So if you're into that, definitely check it out. Also, immediately after the Bills-Texans game, join me and hopefully a guest for the Do Champions post-game show. I'll be giving you the instant reaction and breakdown to the action after the game. Please feel free to comment and message live during the show, and I will try to answer all your questions. Yes, we will be watching the Jets game live and commenting it as well. Definitely be hating, hopefully, on that game, and hopefully Minnesota and Darnold get some revenge. Laura, Houston is wearing their Color Rush uniform, which is fire, but that will be the only good thing about tomorrow for them. That's awesome. Yeah, those uniforms are cool. I'm excited to see them. It's definitely an interesting look. I like the Bills look. I think that all white for Buffalo is just so clean. So it's definitely an elite uniform matchup. So I'm excited for that. So immediately after the game, hop in here and join me for the post-game show. I want to thank again our show sponsor, Happy Holiday and Mackenzie Tree Farms, for supporting us. Please remember this holiday season to buy a real Christmas tree grown here in the USA. Thank you to you all for tuning in. Really appreciate all you Texans fans jumping in with us. It's been a fantastic turnout. Thanks so much for interacting and commenting with us. Thanks again to Cody Stutz. Definitely check him out. He provides a great daily look at all things Texans football. And then also join us next Saturday. I'll be on next Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, for the next episode of the Buffalo Blueprint as I break down the Jets Monday Night Football matchup. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram for @DoChampions. And then for myself as well, please follow me on social. Feel free to interact with me. I will see you all next week. And go Bills. So thanks again for tuning in. Have a great night, everyone.